Kérem vigyázzanak, az ajtók záródnak.
The first time Vitaly and I went to Esztergom, we almost missed this historical Hungarian city entirely. On a very hot day in July, we walked over the bridge to Sturova, revelling in the ease of movement in the Schengen zone, and went to Slovakia for the afternoon to eat ice cream. On the Slovak side, we sat on the bank of the Danube, licking our cones. There seems to be a rather big basilica over there, I commented. Said Vitaly, who, as you know by now, is not a fan of architecture. So we went and had a walk down a Slovak country lane before crossing the bridge back into Hungary and going straight to the station to catch the train home to Budapest. But that basilica haunted me. The next time we went to Esztergom, I insisted on looking at it properly. We walked through the old town and up the steep steps of Macska út, or Cat Lane. As we puffed and panted our way up the hill, I tried not to overwhelm Vitaly with too much information about the primatial basilica of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary and St. Adalbert, Hungary's largest church and the seat of its Archbishop, Cardinal Péter Erdő. The site is ancient, but the present-day church was built in the classicist style in the 19th century. I was looking forward to testing the acoustics under the huge dome and maybe going down into the crypt, built in the old Egyptian style. Here was the tomb of Cardinal József Mindszenty, famous for his opposition to both the Nazis and the Communists. We reached the top of the hill. It was summer again. Swallows were swooping through the air, and the view from the basilica out over the Danube towards Slovakia was spectacular. Vitaly was happy with that, and even happier when we discovered the church was closed for renovation. Yes, but look at this amazing door, I said, making the most of what I could see from the outside. Then it was time for lunch. The best thing about the Esztergom Basilica, we discovered, was the hidden restaurant underneath the great church. We took a lift down to the vaults of the Prima Spinza, or primary cellar, a vast eatery with tables enough to accommodate passengers from the big cruise liners that stop in Esztergom. Luckily that day we had the restaurant to ourselves. Now this is my kind of crypt, said Vitaly, tucking into a plate of juicy brisket and taking another slug of his red wine. Philistine, I said. Which was why the next time I fancied an architectural outing, I decided to go alone. I had long dreamt of visiting Pécs, to see the church that became a mosque that became a church again. I booked a weekend for myself in this lovely old cathedral and university city. You don't mind? I asked. Be my guest, said Vitaly. And it turned out that my timing could not have been better, because the very weekend I had set aside for pitch, workmen were going to come and plaster over the cracks that had appeared in our flats as our new building had settled. Everything was going to be covered in dust, and someone had to stay at home to supervise this operation. I felt a bit guilty to be buggering off, but Vitaly seemed happy enough. He didn't look like the man who had drawn the short straw. On the train to Pécs, I sat opposite a very colourful character, an old man in a Union Jack straw hat with a white handlebar moustache, who spent the entire journey filling out his betting slips. He got off at a village shortly before we arrived in the city. From the station I walked to my hotel, happily getting lost and finding an old synagogue along the way. But it was the downtown Candlemas Church of the Blessed Virgin Mary, or the Mosque of Pasha Qasim, that I had come to see. In the Middle Ages it was a church. During the Turk Hódoltság, or Ottoman occupation, it was a mosque, its church spire replaced by a minaret. After Habsburg Hungarian troops reconquered the city, it became a church again. Down came the minaret and up went a bell tower, although the present-day church just has a dome. In the cool of the evening, I walked around the church mosque, taking in the lovely stonework and the arched bottle-glass windows. Palm trees added an oriental flavour. I noticed with satisfaction that the ticket office would be open and admitting visitors the next day. When I got inside, I found a nice mixture of Christian iconography and Islamic decoration. The triumphant Christians had preserved something of the Muslim spirit, although they had not been able to resist painting a fresco of the Magyars in victory and the Turks looking rather sad. Afterwards, I went into the old town and enjoyed a lady's treat, a lavender ice cream. And then I packed my rucksack for the return to Budapest. When I got home, I found the builders had plastered over all our cracks, and Vitaly had hoovered up the dust and put all the furniture back in its place. He even had the kettle on. "Enjoy the architecture?" he asked with mild interest. "Yep." Now, if you ask me, that's what husbands are for.
This train terminates here. Goodbye.